No, now that's not tweaking of the free market system at all, is it? No, government getting in there and trying to control prices. Remember too, when they said that, quote, "No one here is talking about rationing health care." Well, that was before the bill was passed, and now they're talking about rationing health care. See, they have to talk about rationing finally because it's the only way to lower the costs, as they had promised, with now a limited supply of something, as they had promised. When they talk about this independent board that has the statutory power to decide which categories of treatment are worthy of funding based on efficiency calculations, that sounds like, to me, a panel of bureaucrats. Who's going to decide who receives the care? It's a panel of faceless bureaucrats deciding life and death decisions about our loved ones. And you don't have to take my word for it. The housewife from Wasilla, the hockey mom from up in Alaska, you don't have to take my word for it. You can look it up. And you can try, for instance, that extreme right-wing publication known as the New York Times, because even they finally, last month, they informed us that we all need to get used to the power of no, is how they characterize this and kind of categorize it. And by that, what they mean is the government's power to say no to your request for treatment, because government must say no for the greater good of reducing medical costs in many cases. Doesn't that sound a little bit like rationing to you? Because it sounds like rationing to me, and at least, though, we still are receiving that promise that Obamacare will save taxpayers money, right? We still hear that promise. Actually, no, that's not true either. It doesn't save money. A realistic estimate puts the cost of Obamacare at $2.5 trillion over the next decade. So we have lesser quality of care, fewer choices, higher costs, fewer doctors, and bureaucrats making medical decisions, and the IRS just waiting in the wings to fine you, to penalize you if you don't purchase their government-approved health insurance. Man, what a deal, America! America, we got schnookered on this one. It was rammed down our throat in an assault on our democracy. Isn't any wonder why Americans are saying repeal and replace this scheme? We've got solutions too. It's not being a matter here of not having solutions proposed. I know the GOP, many of them tried to propose solutions, but there was no bipartisan effort with healthcare reform. Solutions, replacing it with a patient-centered, results-driven free market approach to healthcare reform that's needed. It provides solutions like competition between states to purchase coverage, and tort reform, and tax incentives for our small businesses and for people of all incomes to be able to afford healthcare coverage. Just part of the solutions that had been proposed and aren't in the bill. They're not in the law. So Greta, here's what we might want to ask the President. Mr. President, do you understand now that Americans don't want Obamacare? Do you understand that we can't afford this mandate? And do you understand that this will not improve our healthcare system? Not at all. Nor can it reduce the cost of medical care as had been promised. Do you understand that this bill was always going to lead to rationing, though some of us just about got run out of the country by shedding light on that one, and it does violate the 10th Amendment. So please, Mr. President, if you do understand those things, if you do understand, then why wasn't there just more honesty through this whole process from the beginning? See, friends, the importance of this issue still, we can't just let up on it and assume, oh, well, we lost that battle, but we'll win the war. No, this is important because of what it means for this democracy, cramming something through against the will of the people. It was an assault on democracy and the impacts, of course, on our economy. We can't just let this slide. See, we talk a lot and hear a lot about America being on the road towards insolvency, an America that is going to go bust. Part of the reason for that is because of Obamacare, the $2.5 trillion takeover. Well, we're on a course to potentially double our debt in just one decade. We have got to be aware. We have got to be aware, America, and we have got to really, really pay attention and hold our press accountable Get them to ask the right questions. And with healthcare, with the future of healthcare, it's not just that issue, which is, of course, it's 1/6 of our economy that's being taken over and controlled by government, but it's the other money drains that we can expect now. You can't forget, when you talk about the money drains, good old Fannie and Freddie, and that's another issue that has to be addressed. Fannie and Freddie, guys, they've soaked up $145 billion in bailout money recently, and yet they still can't tell us when they expect to be in the black. And I would have to ask, am I the only one who finds it a little odd that the left in Congress just managed to produce a comprehensive financial reform without even tackling the root cause of much of the financial collapse that we have seen, and that's good old Fannie and Freddie. They haven't even addressed it. So while the left was ducking and diving the issue, Fannie came a-knocking again, asking for another bailout, just one more bailout, and crossed her heart, hope to die, just one more bailout this time. This is their very last one. Folks, am I the only one who's having a heck of a hard time trying to keep track now of how many industries, too, this Congress, this White House, this government wants to prop up and bail out and take over and shove aside in the private sector? And yet we're not ramping up production in America. We're not incentivizing more industry in America. What are they thinking? And what are we thinking by kind of allowing them to get away with this part of this fundamental transformation of America that I suppose we were promised we would see? But how many industries in the private sector now are being controlled by government? I'm losing count. I am, and let's see, there's the banking industry, the auto industry, mortgage industry, student loan industry, and you know me, I've got so many things on my mind. Somebody said the other day, oh, you've got all those babies and you've got caribou Barbies or something on your mind. You can't keep track of all that. Well, no, in this case, I can't keep track of that entire list. I'm sure I'm missing some other industries that are being taken over and controlled by government. With all this work bailing out failed industries, it's no wonder the Democrats were too busy to even pass a budget. And do you guys realize this is going on? This is going on in D.C. We do not yet have a budget, and yet it's mandatory, and it's long overdue. You know what would happen to someone like me as a mayor, as a CEO of a city, as a city manager, as a commissioner of oil and gas, as a governor, if I didn't get around to pushing an annual budget so as to function as an efficiently operating body that's serving the public, I'd have been field-dressed out in the middle of the tundra somewhere. That is the administrator's role, is you push for that budget, you craft it, then you work with the legislative body that holds the purse strings and you adopt a budget. But the United States government doesn't have a budget this go around. You don't hear a whole lot about that in the lamestream media, though.